So yeah, the title of this talk is What Are My Jobs Doing? And there is going to be a live demo. So before we start, if you would like to follow along, I'll probably move pretty quickly, but hopefully most people should be able to follow along. Log into an access point you have access to, clone this repository. So it's a GitHub in the CHDC organization. It's called job-info-examples and cd in. So I'm going to do that right now. I'm on my access point. So I'm going to make that a little bigger, hopefully. Okay. And I'm going to do git clone GitHub CHDC job info examples, and then cd into that, and then we're going to submit. The simple jobs.submit as an example and get that queued up. So clone the repository, cd, submit simple jobs. Okay, so now the real reason for the talk. Why are we talking about what information can I find about my job? We talk a lot about how to submit jobs. We just had 3 talks about how to submit jobs, but we haven't always said a lot about how to get information about them after you've submitted them. So this talk is going to cover some different tools that you can use to answer questions about your job, like what is it doing? What resources is it using? Why is it on hold? And other things that may come up as you're submitting things. Okay, so we're going to lean on kind of 3 different tools to do this investigation of our jobs. We're going to use HT Condor's job attributes, which were mentioned in the first talk of the morning, and we'll hopefully go into a little more detail today, right now. We're going to use a couple specialized Condor commands, and we're also going to look at the files that are produced as part of a job execution. Okay, so with that, we're going to launch into our first question. We're going to start with an easy one. Is my job running or not? And so if you've used HT Condor before, you probably know about Condor Q with or without the no batch option. And if you were paying attention during Rachel's talk, you saw Condor Watch Q. So we'll, here we go, Condor Q. I can see that my jobs are running. If I run Condor Watch Q, here's the one idle. So it's showing me kind of both groups of jobs and the ones running. So Condor Q, Condor Watch Q, we've probably seen these ones before. So moving on, now that my jobs are running, I want to know what's happening. What is happening inside my job? So I can use a couple specialized Condor commands to find out some of this information. Condor tail with a job ID will give me the contents of the standard output that's currently only being written on the execute point. If I add the standard error flag, I can look at the standard error file. I can also use, if it's allowed, Condor SSH to job with the job ID to actually log into the job and look at files in its working directory. So I'm going to demo what both of these look like. I'm going to run Condor Q again, so I know what my job numbers are. So if I do Condor tail and I put in the ID number of my first job, this is what's been printed to the standard output file so far. And if I do the same command, but I add dash standard error, nothing prints out because there have been no errors so far. So that's great. So this is a way you can kind of remotely check in on your jobs, is this Condor tail command. I can also run Condor SSH to job and the job ID. And it will log me in to wherever it is my job's running. I can look at the working directory. This is my executable. This is the standard error. This is the standard output file. And I can do what I want to make sure that my job is running the way I'd expect and the files are there that I expect to be there. And then to leave this logged in session, I'll type exit. That doesn't stop the job. If I run Condor Q again, you see that all 5 are still running. It's just I just signed in and signed out, basically. Okay, so that's how I can check on our jobs as they start running. Now, next question, how long have my jobs been running? We have 2 options here. We can use Condor Q -run or Condor Q -run -current. More on that in a minute. Or we can look at the log file if we want to see specific timestamps when things happen. So, play my screen again. I can run Condor Q -run to see how long these jobs have been running. Now, this is a cumulative runtime by default. If I want to see the current runtime, then I need to add this flag. So I'm going to actually interrupt one of my jobs. Let's do that. Condor vacate job. So in a minute, hopefully, that job will restart, and then the output between these 2 commands, the -run and -current, will be different. Okay, so I can also look at my log files. And 1360.log. And this again will have timestamps about when things happen. So this is less about a cumulative and more if you care about when a specific change happened in your job. Okay. Next question. How many resources is my job using? So technically you could SSH to the job and look at it that way. But to answer this question, we're mainly going to talk about attributes. So this should be a review from this morning's user tutorial that HT Condor stores a list of information about every job. And it's stored in this format of some kind of attribute name with a value. You can find these attributes and values by using Condor Q and the long flag, and you can print them out using the auto format flag. So first, let's just see what these attributes look like for one of my jobs. So if I do Condor Q -L or -L 5136, let's look at one of the later jobs. .3. I'm gonna type it to less so it's a little less overwhelming on the page. Here they are in all their multitudinous glory. So the rest of this talk, we're going to try to highlight the ones that are most useful for actually getting information about your jobs. But this is all this information is stored for each of my jobs, and I can use the auto format or -AF flag to print it out. So let's see how we can do this to answer our original question. How many resources is the job using? Condor has a set of attributes: request, memory, disk, CPUs, and usage, memory usage, disk usage, CPU usage, that it records about each job. And so if I want to look at how much memory I requested and how much memory my jobs are using, I can use this auto format flag. So Condor Q -AF, request memory, whoops, capitalization actually doesn't matter, but I'm trying to be consistent here. It'll show this information. Now, this output highlights an important fact that this is not always updated in real time. Some of these attributes are kind of polled at certain increments. So some of these jobs don't yet have a defined memory usage because it hasn't yet been reported to Condor. And we see these two jobs have, and they have a very, very small amount because basically all they're doing is sleeping. So this can be really useful if you're trying to get a sense for a big set of jobs, what the patterns are in terms of resource usage. So I can do this same process. I'm going to do it right now with CPUs and disk. So if I change, basically just change memory to disk, I get the same kind of information. The units are different about my jobs. So we're using attributes. We're using the auto format flag to display them. This answered the question, how many resources is my job using right now, more or less? What about jobs that have finished and are no longer in the queue? Same thing, just Condor history instead of Condor queue. So we're using Condor history. We're using the auto format flag with those attribute names. We'll also add these two options. Condor history, you have to add your username. And we're also going to add this limit flag because otherwise it takes a very long time for the command to actually return. So we're going to run this command in a minute. And similarly to the previous example, this is really good if you've just run a big set of test jobs and you want an overview of the results. So we often use this with some kind of like summarizing pipe like sort and unique. Okay, so hopefully some of my jobs have in fact finished. Let's see how we're doing here. Okay, one of them. Whew. All right, so I'm going to do Condor history. And I'm going to go ahead and do you could do your username or the cluster number. We're just going to look at one. And now is where I add my auto format flag, memory usage. I could look at the same thing. I could look at disk usage. Whoops. And so on. So I'm only doing this for one job now, but you could apply this to any set of completed jobs that you wanted to get this information about. Okay. So next question, where did my job run? Also, Condor history, same thing, just a different attribute. So now instead of the usage and request attributes with memory, disk, or CPUs, we're going to use last remote host. I use this the most when I'm looking for a pattern of failures or successes, and I suspect that the problem is a particular server. So it can be really useful. So I'm gonna basically just run the same command that I did before. So Condor history, user or job ID, limit, and then where it ran, last remote host. Eagle eyes will be able to tell if this was the same host name I saw when I logged into the job earlier. So that's, again, same idea, different question. You can also use the log file. So printed in that file is where the job executed. And that's if a job has started multiple times, it will have a line for each execution. So you can see all the different servers where a job ran, if that's important to you. If a job is still running, we saw before Condor Q-run will show where it's currently executing. And you can also generate that information yourself using remote host instead of last remote host with the auto format flag. So if I look at my current set of jobs that are running, oops. There they are. If I did Condor Q AF remote host, I get the same list, same information, two different ways to get the same information. Okay. We'll take a quick break, submit another set of jobs. There's another submit file in the repository called complex jobs.submit. So we're going to submit that one. Should be 3. Come back to those in a second. So if you're following along, feel free to submit those. Okay. So next question, what did I run? I don't know if anyone else has ever done this, submitted jobs and then been like, wait a minute, which script name was that? Which arguments did I use? The command cmd and args attributes can recover this information. Again, we can use them with condor queue for jobs in the queue. We can use them with condor history for jobs that have completed. I'm also highlighting here that after the auto format flag, there's a bunch of modifiers you can add that will change the formatting, that will make them comma or tab separated. These two will add job numbers, which is kind of handy, and a header, so you know what you're printing out. So let's take a look at what I'm running, in fact. So we're going to do condor q -af : and add the job and header flags. And then I just want to print out the command, which is the executable that I'm running, and the arguments that I pass to it. So there we go. So these are the jobs I submitted in the first round. Here's the second round. You can see that they have different time periods. That's why some of them have finished and some haven't. And I can do the same thing with condor history. So I'll do 5136, limit 1. So I add these pieces that I need for condor history, but then it's the same -af, adding the 2 modifiers, command args. You can see the job that's finished already is the one that was supposed to run for the smallest amount of time of our list. Okay. Oh, now there's 2 of them, I think. Okay. So this is just one example of the kind of information you might want to dig out about your jobs because you forgot what you did. There are a lot of other attributes that certainly I use when I'm troubleshooting to figure out, okay, what was this job actually doing? So where it was submitted or where its initial directory was set to is IWD, where the log file is, user log, where the standard out and standard error files are, and a job's exit code that obviously you can only use with condor history, and then requirements. This is useful to use another one of those modifiers because that actually prints out kind of the raw requirements statement if you're using it. I'll add a note, there are timestamp kind of attributes in the submit file, but most of them are in epoch time, which is not super human readable. So that's why I tend to lean on using some of the other commands I showed earlier to see how long my job is running or how long it ran. That was obviously not a full list. There's a page in the HT Condor manual that has all of the class add attributes that can exist in a class add. Your administrator may have added some custom ones as well. So there may be ones that are in your job information that's not in the manual, but this is a pretty good list. And we'll see the job status attribute in just a minute. It's a numerical code indicating the status of the job. You can run condor q -help status to get a short list of the numerical codes and their states. So I'm going to do condor q status. So there it is. Okay. So lots of attributes. we get to a $1 million question, why is my job on hold? There are many ways to find out why your job is on hold. You can run condor q-hold, very similar to condor q-run. Again, you can use attributes. The attributes that we would use in this context are hold reason code or hold reason. This information is also printed in the log file. We want to make sure that you can find it somehow, some way, so you can fix your jobs. So I'll show the top two condor commands in my little demo. So if I run condor q-hold, here's my held job and its error message. I can also run condor q -af, hold reason code, hold reason, and get some of the same information. Again, different ways to get the same thing. If you have a bunch of jobs on hold, again, the printing it out with auto format might be easier to kind of get a nice summary of what's going on. Okay, so the last two slides here are just kind of an extension of some of the ideas that we've already been talking about. So I've been trying to answer a bunch of questions you might have about your jobs using built-in condor commands, attributes, log files, but we've kind of been assuming we just want to select one job or a set of jobs or all the jobs that belong to one user. You can choose a different subset of jobs if you so desire. Like I want to just see jobs that are idle, or I just want to see jobs that, I don't know, have a process ID greater than 500 or whatever it might be. I just want to get my jobs that are on hold. And so the condor Q has an option called constraint, -constraint. There should be a single quote at the beginning here, where you can put in single quotes an expression that uses attributes to select a subset of jobs. And this option does work with other condor commands, but we're going to use it in the context of like, I just want to look at this particular subset of my jobs. In our case, the ones that are idle. So let me go to the top of the screen here. If I do condor q -constraint, and then in single quotes, job status equals 1. So there's that job status that we looked at 2 slides ago. 1 is idle. This gives me my 2 idle jobs. And then maybe I want to investigate them further with other attributes. Maybe I want to remove them, whatever. Now I've found them. So these attributes can help you find particular subsets of jobs. And finally, I'm not going to demo this because the output is just a lot, but we can use similar principles to find information about computers in the HC Condor pool that we're using. We can use condor status -L to get a list of different computer machine attributes, and we can use the auto format flag to print out the things we're interested in and go from there. So this one has a lot of outputs. I won't demo it, but you can explore on your own Condor system and see what you find out. So with that, I will pause and take questions. Is there anything else you'd like to learn about your jobs, attributes of interest?